Hi everyone. Today I'm going to be talking about social isolation and how it affects the health of older adults. Social isolation is a problem that is very relevant today, but it has also been a problem in previous years. There are many older adults living in social isolation, and for those of you who don't know, social isolation is basically the disconnect between an individual and the rest of society. Studies have shown that there is a 29% increased likelihood of death for those who report being socially isolated. In November of 2019, 28% of people aged 65 and older were living alone. And just for living alone, there is a 32% increased likelihood of death for those who live alone. And with living alone and social isolation comes loneliness. But loneliness does not always mean living alone. In fact, a UCSF study showed that 43% of all the seniors they surveyed reported that they felt lonely, but only 18% of those seniors actually lived alone. So this shows that an older adult can feel lonely despite living with other people, because some of these seniors lived in nursing homes and some of them lived with other people. Um, so yeah, with all of this, with loneliness, there is actually a 26% increased likelihood of death for those who report loneliness. So social isolation, living alone, and loneliness, these are all things that should be considered risk factors for older adults, especially when it comes to death. And now more than ever, those who are normally not socially isolated are now experiencing it. And this is a big change that can lead to a great impact, that can create a great impact on one's life. So these are some things that can be highly associated with social isolation and loneliness. So these are heart disease, stroke, and there's actually a 50% increased risk of dementia for those who are isolated and lonely. And older adults who are lonely can also experience depression and anxiety. They actually also suffer a mortality rate that is comparable to the mortality rate of those who smoke, who drink an excessive amount of alcohol, who are obese, and are physically inactive. So these are things, all of these things are things that we want to avoid. So problems aside, negativity aside, I'm going to start talking about some solutions and ways we can prevent our older adults from feeling socially isolated and from feeling lonely, so that they don't have to encounter these other problems that come along with that. So if you are a younger adult and you have an older family member, it might be worth inviting them out for lunch from time to time, or even visiting their home and just having a chat. This can help them feel more included in other people's lives and in their own life. Another thing that is really helpful is group exercise classes, exercise programs of all sorts. This helps reduce isolation because you are sort of forced to be in a social environment. You have a lot of people there with you, and they all have the same interests as you. So it helps to be in that social setting. And another really positive thing is that it also um, makes you do physical activity. So physical activity is a really positive thing altogether, because it reduces blood pressure, it increases muscle strength, muscle endurance, and it helps you maintain healthy bones, among so many other things. But yeah, group exercise classes are great because you get that physical activity aspect, but you also get that social aspect that helps reduce the feeling of loneliness and isolation. But these things aren't really accessible for us today because of the certain circumstances that we are in right now. But another way that we can still remain connected with everyone, which is definitely something that we want to do, is by calling friends and family. That could be through a cell phone, that could be through like video calling, like Skype or Zoom, or you can even write letters to your friends and family. That's a great way to stay in touch. Even to this day, I feel like it will never grow old. I still write letters sometimes. But and I actually really like writing letters because I feel like it's more personal because you put in more time to write the letters, and if you like decorating letters, you could do that too. Um, so yeah, that those are other ways that we can still stay connected with our family and friends while keeping our older adults in the loop. But if, let's say, friends and family are out of town or we just can't contact them at the moment, there's also the friendship line that the Institute on Aging has in San Francisco. So this is basically a warm line that older adults can reach out to if they're feeling lonely, so that way they have someone to talk to. And the people on the other end are basically there to provide emotional support. They also do outreach calls to lonely older adults. They also do well being checks. So it's just a great resource to have just at all times, at any time, really. Um, so, yeah, that is their toll free number. And once you call this number, you get connected to someone that you can have a chat with. So, yeah, even though we are all living in social isolation, or in isolation, it does not have to be lonely. We have so many different resources that we could use to lessen that feeling of loneliness and help our older adults be more healthy.